From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Today is the inauguration of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who will begin his new mandate for 2019-2025. International dignitaries have arrived in the country for the ceremony. Among them, Bolivia's President Evo Morales, who also received an honorary degree in the capital of Caracas. Morales was acknowledged for his leadership in the region and for his solidarity with Venezuela. Upon arrival, Morales was greeted by Venezuelan officials. Minutes later, he talked about his support for the Venezuelan government, in particular against U.S. interventionism and the importance of the revolutionary processes across Latin America.
We have a historic responsibility to defend our democratic processes, our revolutionary processes, revolutions based on voting and the will of our people. It saddens me to see that imperial powers are still trying to make us fight with each other, be it with Bolivians, Latin Americans, Venezuelans. But as a people, we have the obligation to defend our independence, our sovereignty. So we salute this revolutionary people, the children of Bolivar, the children of Chavez. We have come to defend our liberation.
Overnight, the president of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, arrived in Venezuela and was received by Planning Minister Ricardo Menéndez. President Ortega expressed gratitude for the chance to visit the homeland of Hugo Chavez to participate in this special day.
All of our love for the heroic people of Venezuela. I'm pleased to be in this free nation, the homeland of Bolivar, the homeland of Chavez, which today is being liberated.
Representatives of Caribbean governments are also in Venezuela for Maduro's inauguration. The president of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, praised the Bolivarian Revolution and condemned attempts of intervention.
The Bolivarian Revolution has come about through consensual means, electoral means. There have been 24 elections. The Bolivarians have lost one in a referendum. Every other election, they won. What can you tell me about that fact when you want to have regime change? There are difficulties in Venezuela, there are challenges, and the way imperialism is acting, it is acting in a manner which is subversive of the interests of the people of Venezuela, and their activities among to unwarranted interference in the internal affairs of an independent country, contrary to international law and all civilized international norms.
To congratulate President Maduro. Tomorrow is going to be an excellent day in the start of a new chapter, and I want to wish the government and people of Venezuela going forward all the very best. Significant work is needed as we lift production and productivity. As the Minister of Agriculture here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, through the Petro-Caribbean program, we were able to establish a farmer support company with the assistance of the government and people of Venezuela.
Let's go live now to Caracas to our correspondent Luis Tavera, who has more. He's outside the Supreme Court. Hello, Luis, can you hear us?
Greeting Congress with me from the office of the Supreme Court of Justice, from where the arrival of President Nicolas Maduro is expected from his presidential oath. Here you can hear the atmosphere of joy that is lived here. Social and political movements come early to support the swearing in the Venezuela. There are several points I will like to share with the audience. This act takes place in the man's and political context where Venezuela maintains its denunciation of the interference that does manifest the self-proclaimed Grupo de Lima. This not prevent Maduro from taking this out today. Various international representations also arrived in Venezuela to give diplomatic support and recognition of the president of this nation, Nicolas Maduro. Representation from Cuba, Russia, Turkey. These are just some of those who will be here today in Venezuela to support the Bolivar government. We are going to stay here, keep you informed.
Thank you very much, Luis. That was Luis Tavera, our correspondent from Caracas, and we'll be following this along the day. So stay tuned. We have extended coverage of today's events as Maduro begins his new term, and you can follow the swearing-in here on Telesur English. These are the times, so check it out. So let's take a look back on the Venezuelan presidential elections that were held on May 20th last year. And we'll see if we have that material for you later on this newscast. Let's go to other stories. Panamanian experts are sure that international relations are being manipulated to benefit big powers like the United States. They state that Panama's participation in the Lima Group is a symptom of this.
Panama's foreign ministry has been harshly criticized for serving U.S.-aligned interests.
Former President Varela implemented policies that are far from the alleged neutral Panamanian position, a tradition of dialogue that our country has had throughout history. Now we serve North American foreign policies.
Panama, as a member of the Lima Group, tries to isolate Venezuela. This is a far cry from Panama's historically neutral stance.
Panama has done a lot throughout history, and it's not good for us as a nation to accept this. This even helps divide our country.
When it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, Panama was one of the few countries that voted against Palestine being recognized as a state. Panama has also remained silent on the many human rights violations.
Panama has aligned itself with these kinds of policies, and we can see how the government makes statements on certain countries but remains silent about others. However, when Panama remains quiet, it means that we are accepting crimes against humanity and injustice taking place in other parts of the world, such as Palestine and Yemen.
Panamanian social movements are still fighting to defend sovereignty and independence, not just for the country, but for their Latin American brothers and sisters.
We have more stories coming up. We'll be back. Welcome back. Celebrations have taken place in the Democratic Republic of Congo as the opposition leader has been declared the winner on the presidential elections. Supporters of Felix Tshisekedi took to the streets of the capital and the city of Goma to celebrate his victory. Tshisekedi will be the first leader to take power through elections since the first prime minister took office following independence in 1960.
We thank God and we thank President Kabila for his good faith. He's freed Congo. There you go. Today we are free.
After a delay in revealing the results, the Electoral Commission of the Congo announced that Tshisekedi received more than 7 million votes, and the voter turnout in this election was 48%.
est proclamé provisoirement.
Mr. Tshisekedi Tshilombo has been provisionally elected as President of the Republic of Congo. The results detailed by candidates and the tallies are being transmitted to the Constitutional Court for any possible recourse within a 2-day delay from this publication. The latter is in charge of publishing the definitive results in conformity with Article 72 and 74 of the electoral law.
Meanwhile, the runner-up in this election, Martin Fayulu, has rejected the results. President Joseph Kabila is set to step down in the coming days.
We categorically reject the result published by Election Commission President Mr. Corneille Nangaa. May God Almighty bless the Congo.
School bells are ringing across South Africa as the first academic day of 2019 kicks off. But research shows many of them will not make it through the country's education system due to South Africa's high dropout rate. More on this report from our correspondent in Pretoria, Matuba Matachi.
Metzing Primary School caters for children from mixed-income households around Soshanguve Township, north of Pretoria. Some of the students are here with the help of government social grants, while others hail from working-class homes, so their parents or caregivers are able to pay their fees. This is John Mulepo and his former primary school teacher, Selimu Tupi. John is now a PhD candidate and a lecturer at the University of the Northwest. He completed his primary and secondary education at nearby schools around Soshanguve. Now he's here to give back. John has rallied other graduates to help provide stationery and cover books for Metzing primary school pupils.
I remember with me, in my case, my parents had a challenge in terms of, the school gave us books, but then, the, covering of, wrapping of books was a challenge at home. So I remember, this is a case of my story when I was young. So I said to myself, maybe how many kids are still suffering from those things. So I said to myself, why can't we plow back to the community and do this thing, and maybe we can assist families out there.
John's social activism is an example to follow for mostly disadvantaged children at the school. He runs other campaigns that help aspiring university students cover their unaffordable university fees. John says social media has been instrumental in tracking down former pupils who want to give back to their old school. And former teacher Selimu Tupi says she's not surprised by John's generosity.
I met John as a young boy at Mataga Primary School in 2002 while he was in grade 4. He was a young, sweet boy. Then he was playing soccer by then. He was positive, he liked to explore so many things.
25 years into democracy, South Africa is still recovering from the unjust apartheid policies that prevented black people from receiving a quality education. In many cases, even if young people make it through university, they are bound by the financial shackles of now having to support their extended families. But the country is fortunate to have a new, inspiring generation of people like John, who not only empower themselves through education, but also bend down to offer a hand to those climbing the ladder after him. Matuma Mahlachi, Telesur, Soshanguve in Pretoria.
Now to the Caribbean. In Guyana, the government and the opposition have reached an agreement regarding the no-confidence vote against the ruling coalition. Both parties discussed general and local elections, as well as the functioning of the National Assembly and the government. President David Granger provided an update after the one-hour-long meeting with the opposition leader, Bharat Jagdeo.
As you know, the government has had legal recourse to the courts in order to determine the validity of the vote in the National Assembly on the 21st of December. This is quite legitimate, and there's no intention on the part of the government to derail the constitutional or legislative process. We have agreed that the two sides will continue to work together to engage GCOM to ensure that elections are held within the administrative capabilities of the Guyana Elections Commission. I would say in conclusion that we've had a successful engagement. both the leader of the opposition and the president are concerned about the situation. We would like to assure the public in Guyana that we are working to a solution which they will be satisfied with. The public interest is our paramount concern.
Human rights groups in Guatemala have applauded the Constitutional Court for overturning the government's decision to expel a UN-backed anti-corruption mission from the country. Activists gathered in front of the court to support the ruling and the work of the International Commission Against Impunity. Activists say the lack of governance and growing corruption have contributed to the increase in the number of people leaving Guatemala in hopes of a better future.
The International Commission Against Impunity has to return because it's clear the existence of an illegal body and clandestine security apparatus that is part of a mafia economic political network embedded in the places you've already seen and that have been self-confessed.
Gas stations in some parts of Mexico have ran out of fuel as the government continues to fight fuel theft. The government has temporarily closed down some state pipelines in a bid to end what the theft that has cost the country an estimated $3 billion in 2017. People in Mexico City and central areas of the country spent hours waiting to fill up their tanks at the few stations that are still open. Meanwhile, the Mexican president has warned people to remain calm and refrain from panicking.
It would be easy to reopen the pipelines and say it is back to normal. But we would do that knowing that they are still stealing it.
In other news, a Guarani community in Paraguay is camping in the capital Asunción to protest after being evicted from their territory. They blame Brazilian businessmen for taking over their lands.
Families of the Mbia Guarani community known as Tacuari are camping in the middle of Asunción. They have been protesting for 3 months, asking the government to give them their territory back. But the government of Mario Abdo Benitez hasn't helped them until now.
We are fighting for our ancestral lands. We were evicted from our lands. Men hired by Brazilian businessmen did this. They also killed one of our leaders, Isidoro Barrios. His body wasn't even returned. This happened 5 months ago. The government hasn't done anything.
According to official figures, 76% of indigenous people in the country live in extreme poverty. Many moved to the city in search of basic services and help that the state is not providing in their territories.
They say we are violent. They say that because we are defending our rights, because we are not taking more injustice. Our youth now know they cannot remain silent. We need to defend our rights.
The Guarani community was expelled from the country's border with Brazil, an area that has seen an increase of soya monocultures. A special report from the Olo Nos Ruralistas Observatory has shown that 14% of indigenous territories are in the hands of Brazilian businessmen.
These people think they own Paraguay. They don't respect our state authorities. The Attorney General, who should defend us and our rights, hasn't done anything for us, not even politicians or judges. We are dying because we have no support.
The families that are camping in Asunción say they want to return to their territory. They also announced they will reach out to other community groups to ask them to support their protests.
In the west of Colombia, the famous Blacks and Whites Carnival has come to an end in the city of Pasto. On the final day of the festival, guinea pigs play a central role. Even though they may be well looked after and even dressed up, they end up on the grill. As many as 7,000 guinea pigs were eaten during this year's festival. After being converted into a bookstore, a 100-year-old theater in the Argentine capital of Buenos Aires has become an unlikely tourist destination. Having opened in 1919, the Grand Splendid has hosted tango dancing, plays, and cinema. It was said to be destroyed in the 90s, but after an extensive restoration process, the old theater has been brought back to its former glory. Now millions visit this bookstore. We're taking one last break. Stay with us. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is continuing on his tour to the Middle East and has met the Egyptian president in Cairo. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Pompeo at the presidential palace, where Pompeo also met the Egyptian foreign minister. This meeting follows the stops in Jordan and Iraq. And from Cairo, he's scheduled to head to Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, and Kuwait to discuss the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu has requested the joint cooperation of Russia and Iran to ensure the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. During a press conference in Ankara, Cavusoglu said that the United States' withdrawal process from Syria should be supervised by Turkey along with Russia and Iran to prevent terrorist organizations from occupying the empty space. He added that the U.S. is having difficulties withdrawing from the Kurdish People's Protection Units because they are too committed.
The United States is struggling to leave. It's not so easy to do so after dealing with the terrorist organizations. This is one of the difficulties that the United States is experiencing, but we see that there are different voices coming from different institutions. On the other hand, we want to coordinate this process with the leadership of our Western counterparts, and especially with Russia and Iran, with whom we have worked together since the Astana peace process. We don't want terrorist organizations to gain the benefits of that vacancy.
A woman football coach in Syria is instructing a male team. Janud, who previously played for the Syrian national women's team, said she believes that she's the first woman in the Middle East to coach a professional male team. She's currently an assistant coach at the Damascus club, and that football is still a male-dominant in the country. Also, the Syrian civil war prevented women's teams from playing football for several years.
Coaching is a science regardless of whether those practicing this science are male or females. It is science. When the person carrying this message of coaching is confident on their information and has a special charisma and leadership on their pitch, it makes no difference between a man or a woman.
German airport security workers have gone on strike to demand a rise to their salaries. Wearing yellow vests, protesters demonstrated at the airports of Düsseldorf, Cologne and Stuttgart, hoping to pressure negotiations in wage rises. Workers' labor unions demand an increase to around $23 per hour pay for all workers conducting security checks. The strike affected around 600 flights which were cancelled.
The people working here at the airport work 7 days a week around the clock in different shifts. Their job is to protect passengers from terrorist threats. This means their job carries a lot of responsibility and it is very stressful.
And on a lighter note, a baby penguin under the care of same-sex couple in Australia has taken its first swimming lessons. The baby and its parents belong to the Sea Life Aquarium in Sydney, Australia. The foster parents, 2 male penguins, made headlines last year when aquarium staff gave them the egg, causing an internet sensation. And with that, we end our news brief. But this and other stories, you can read them from our website at telesurenglish.net. And we're also on social media, so go ahead and follow us. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.